hear me okay?
A little bit closer. Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. So my name is Joe Simpson. I made 6 slides, but I'm going to spend 45 minutes on each one, so we'll be out of here by 7. Anyway, my name is Joe Simpson. I own a company called Radical Application Development. I'm transitioning that company from business application development for small businesses and governments and educational clients, and I'm kind of transitioning myself into virtual reality development with some augmented reality thrown in eventually as well. So I'm a freelance Unity developer. I am for hire if anybody needs a Unity developer or consultant. And I also do a weekly podcast called VR Hermits, and I'll have a link to that later. There's another guy who comes here sometimes, gets a big beard, deep voice. His name is Dave. He is my co-host. We do the podcast every week. We talk about virtual reality development and just other topics kind of around what it's like running a software development company and kind of whatever we feel like. Talking about a lot of games and sometimes movies. And it's a really unpolished show, but I think we both get a lot of value out of just doing it. So if you want to check it out and let us know what you think, please do. This is the demo, if you want to take a look at the demo. This is the demo. So let's make sure SteamVR is running. Okay. You gotta do like the Catholic incense thing with the headset to establish tracking. Okay, so you want to go ahead and pop this on? Just make that comfortable. So here are the controllers. Okay, so you can just pull the trigger to create a ball when I start this up. And let me make one more quick change before I start that. Just there. Sorry to leave you in the compositor there.
That's the taser noise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have no idea how loud that's going to be. Not loud at all. Okay. So yeah, I didn't think the audio was going to work. It was worth a shot though.
Not just me. There we go.
Yeah. And now that will be the only successful hit.
This game idea was just an idea we had on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I've worked on this for about 2 weeks, and mainly I just wanted to play with the mechanics of bowling and see what it was like in VR, and this is the result of that after about 2 weeks worth of work. There's lots of other things that I've tried. At one point there was a bazooka involved, and I want to get into that. So I'm going to go ahead and start the game. Currently she's just in free throw mode, but I'm going to activate a timeline game object. And then you've got 30 seconds to get as many of those pins knocked over as you can. If you look up at that green building in front of you, there's a scoreboard, which you can kind of see.
Can you see that in game?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see it. I'm at 32 now.
37. And you can bowl with both arms, too.
Can you double? Just go with rapid fire.
Just total chaos. So now the lanes are moving around. So the timeline, I just started a timeline that is just playing through a couple of different lanes. There's not really any animated transition or anything. I just learned about Unity timeline at like 11:30 this morning. So surprise, there's timeline. There is some sound effects and music. The sound effects work with physics, so when you actually roll the ball, there's a constant sound effect, and the pitch decreases as it goes away. And there's like impact sounds, there's sounds on the pins. There's all kinds of buggy quirkiness. Like sometimes the pins will still have velocity when they respawn, so they'll just respawn and fall down. Like, and then you get points for that, of course.
Yay.
Now there's 4 lanes. You don't have 4 hands, but you can try.
Use your feet.
Get 2 more controllers and just,
Yeah.
pull 2 at a time.
5 trackers.
I don't know, I tried kicking bowling ball before and it didn't work too well.
So, and then it pretty much ends here. So the demo is only like, a minute, or 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. But that's what it's like so far. Anybody else want to give it a shot? It's come and see. Yeah, I've definitely found some new muscles in this leg the past couple of weeks doing this all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And okay, thank you very much. Let me take these. Okay, so in terms of, let's go through the other slides real quick. I spent a little bit of time on it the last 2 weeks. I started working on it 2 Saturdays ago, right back there, and worked on it. I had like basically the basic bowling mechanic done within the first day, and then I tracked my time on this. The biggest obstacle to me was I was playing with audio. I hadn't really done anything in audio in Unity at that point, so I had a lot of learning to do. So that 18 hours went into you not being able to hear anything at all. So that's how much I accomplished. But I learned a lot about how audio mixers work in Unity and how to make sound effects with collisions and how to adjust pitch and tempo and stuff like that. But none of that's really in the project. There is some basic music and sound effects in this version, but the rest of it was development and a little bit of visual stuff and admin. If anybody wants to dive into the code, if there are any experienced Unity developers here, I'd love to pick your brain afterwards and kind of get a code review. I'm still relatively new in Unity. I've only been using it since September. So I'd love to see, I know everything that I've done so far is just like making the red dots go away and then just making things work. So there's not really any coherent design to it. So if you want to get a hold of me for anything, you can follow me on Twitter at vrhermit_Joe. I've got a website, radicalapplicationdevelopment.com. There's nothing there yet right now because I'm rebuilding everything. The podcast is vrhermits.com, and then I'm always here, usually from Tuesday to Saturday. I get here, 8 o'clock in the morning and stay till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So if you want to catch up at the sandbox and chat. And then if anybody has a chance to come and try this after we get done here, please do. And then I've got a little feedback form if you want to submit ideas or suggestions or things you like or didn't like about the game, or just tell me that I'm a jerk and stop making games. Feel free to use that, radicalappdev/bowling. So that's the slides. I know it's getting close to 7, so let's go ahead.
I've got 2 Unity trackers if you want to try doing feet.
I kind of do. Just like whenever they leave the ground, we could probably spawn a ball and release.
You had 4 lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it needs to be a
Bowling
rhythm game.
dancing
Yeah.
simulator.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, have you ever worked with Unreal? Is there a reason you picked Unity over?
When I started working in VR, I basically finished a large consulting project last year in the end of April, and I started working full-time in VR in May last year. And the first thing I did was spend almost 4 months in Unreal Engine confusing myself and not really making any progress. I know a lot about how to make materials in Unreal Engine, and that's about it. I'm really, really bad at C++, and I managed to hang myself with blueprints every time I used them. So towards the end of the summer, I started working with Unity, and things just click with me much quicker. So I'm making a lot more progress. I've made dozens of small games and demos. I haven't released anything yet, other than I'll put a build of this up at some point. But I really need to get to the point of actually shipping some products. So one of the things I wanted to ask of everybody, if you could leave me some feedback, do you think this is a viable product? I haven't really committed to making this into a thing. I just wanted to spend some time putting a demo together to kind of have something in my portfolio. But do you think a wave-based bowling game is a viable idea for the VR community? I was thinking kind of like Space Invaders meets bowling pins. You could have a lot of different game mechanics where like the pins are coming towards you, but that kind of makes it easier, so maybe the pins are going away from you. You're stuck in that arena. There's pins spawning all over the place. You could have tons of different things. Like we just saw those 5 lanes kind of pop in and out, but we could have lanes kind of spinning around, or lanes at different levels and ramps. a lane that's really, really wide with hundreds of pins on it all coming at you. Maybe the pins are shooting bowling balls back, I don't know. There's a lot of things you can do with it, so if you have any ideas, let me know.
A lot of crunch.
Yeah, definitely. But currently it's just, just been playing around and seeing what's fun.
Maybe a crossover of Dance Dance Revolution and bowling.
Yeah, definitely.
Pins coming at you.
Yeah, with the Vibe trackers.
Is this your full-time job?
It is, but I don't get paid for it, so.
So it's more like a hobby.
No, this is what I do full time. I'm living off of
Yes.
my consulting company's previous revenue, but I'm quickly running out of that money, so hence I'm a freelance Unity developer.
I'll be honest, like somewhat in the same boat, but I wouldn't know what a full-time job that you don't get paid at is called.
Yeah, I think
should
it's
be a
called
word for it.
unemployed.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Have you done other contracts, and how do you find those?
My background is in the FileMaker industry, which is a proprietary database application program, essentially.
It's like
kind of an
Access.
internal. Huh?
It's like
not like
Access.
Access. Access is like FileMaker. But you can make things. So that's where I spent the last 7 years making software, and I've run an independent company for the last 3 years. That's where Radical App Dev came from. Most of my business has come from the previous jobs that I worked. A lot of my customers followed me when I left those jobs, started my own company, and then they have recommended other companies to me. But mostly I've worked in education, so it's been easy for me because I have kind of a minimalistic lifestyle. It's easy for me to do like one, $50,000 software project and live on that for a long time. I just don't need a lot. So I'll do a big project, I'll work really hard for a couple of months, and then it just won't work until I run out of money again, which is what's happening now. Right now, I'm trying to make that next big project a Unity project rather than going back to FileMaker or a VR project in general.
Have you investigated what other bowling VR games there might be out there already?
I did a quick search on Steam, and there was a bowling game that was it was fairly realistic. You were in a bowling alley, it was very traditional. I'm like, well, that's really cool, so I'm not going to make that, which is why I decided to go in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
This game idea actually started with a joke that I made on the podcast called Bowling in a Tube. So we were talking a lot about playing with gravity in Unity, so we thought about maybe having gravity on the inside of the tube. You're standing on a deck, there's a tube in front of you, there's pins at the other end, and you got to chuck the ball down a tube and try to roll it along the walls. And,
Yeah,
I may still do that.
That actually sounds really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Barbecue bowling. Yeah.
There's also ideas for doing power-ups on the pins, so certain pins give your next ball an explosive power, or maybe there's one that makes your ball 10 times the size, and just bowls through the arena and destroys everything.
Yeah, one or two more questions, one up there.
Great.
Is there a reason you could gauge interest by just putting it on Steam?
I may do that. It's way too early for that right now. I would probably get death threats for uploading this. But yeah, I would definitely. I like the idea of doing an early access version. So maybe if I decide to do a wave-based bowling game, get one really good crafted level up and release it under early access and see what people think. I'm not a big fan of games that release under early access and then never finish. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person because I don't like it when people do that to me. So, any other questions?
I got another question. So when you're developing in VR, when you do something in code or whatnot, do you have to then put on the headset to test it, or is there a way to?
Yes and no. So there's a couple different workflows. The thing I do most commonly is I've got in my backpack a Samsung Odyssey, which is almost like a Vive, only the tracking isn't quite as good. Other than that, it's great. It's got actually a better resolution, the screen is brighter, but the tracking isn't quite as good as the HTC Vive or the Oculus with 3 sensors. So I will bring that with me when I develop, and I'll just write some code, I'll work in Unity, I'll run the app in Unity and try it on the headset. The Steam VR, I'm working entirely in the Steam VR stack. I'm not doing anything with VRTK or the Oculus SDKs or anything else. It's all Steam VR for me. Because for me, that gives me the Vive automatically, but also the Oculus can run Steam. All of the Windows Mixed Reality headsets can run Steam. So that's 10 headsets for one API, which sounds like a no-brainer to me. But the Steam VR, there are some simulators, I think you've used them, built into the Steam VR stuff, and it's a good way to just quickly test a function like, is this input thing working? It's not a really good way to experience the app, so it is helpful to have a headset to try it, especially if you're doing anything visual. But there is, because I have the Windows Mixed Reality headset, I don't do this here because I don't trust people around me enough to stay in a headset all day. But when I'm in my home office working, I will put the Windows Mixed Reality headset on and work in the Windows Cliff House and use Unity in VR. And then I can run Unity in VR, and it takes over my VR session. So I can just leave the headset on for 3 or 4 hours and work that way. So I just don't do that here because I don't trust these guys. Multivariate.
Very good, smart choice.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Awesome. That's
Cool. Well, thank you.
Sweet.